Hi guys, so let's take a look at how we can actually graphically represent as well as numerically understand inequality. Okay, so we're going to look at the Lorenz curve and the Gini coefficient here. The Lorenz curve is very much the graphical representation of the distribution of income and wealth in an economy. Okay, now if we consider that in relation to the box that I've drawn out here, we can see the cumulative population, lowest to highest income, 0. Right through to our highest income earners at 100% here. Okay, these are of course our lowest income earners. Then on our horizontal, we can see that we've got the cumulative share of income earned. 0 starting here, right up through to 100% here. Now you can see that I've also represented this line running at 45 degrees across this box, representing the line of perfect equality. Okay, so if you were on this line as an economy, everyone in your society would earn as much as everyone else. Okay, so you would have perfect equality. Okay, now if we just consider our graphical representation of this Lorenz curve then, if I was to just draw in a Lorenz curve looking something like so, according to that black line there, we can see that that black line it's not on the line of equality, so there is some inequality within this society, okay? But it isn't that far away from our line of perfect equality. So therefore, you're likely to consider that as to be a relatively equal society in all instances. It is not as if the line was coming right out here, okay, which would highlight a highly unequal society. Okay, so let's now move on to the Gini coefficient. So this aggregates gaps between people's incomes into a single measure. And here we've got the perfect equality, which would equal 0. And this would be where you're on this line of perfect equality. So you'd have perfect equality there. Meanwhile, you'd have perfect inequality if the actual Gini coefficient was 1. Okay, let's just understand that a moment, alright? So if we just take off this Lorenz curve for a moment and just consider that all of that area now is area B. If that is all area B, then the Gini coefficient is measured according to this calculation, A divided by A plus B. Okay, so then what we're actually doing is we're just doing nothing divided by B equals, well, the answer of course would be nothing. Okay, so therefore we are on that line of perfect equality and there is no area A. Okay, so let's now contrast that with if we were at this point here and the 100th person in society owns everything. Well, what would you have there? You would have no area B. All of this would be area A. So then you would have A divided by A, and that of course would equal 1. Okay, so that's relatively straightforward when you consider it as so. Now what's interesting to consider is the different correspondents in the different countries that have differing inequalities. So for instance, Slovenia has a very low level of inequality at 0.26, whereas South Africa has the worst inequality in the world, okay, at 0.63 on the Gini coefficient there. So we could actually represent these two countries. So we might have Slovenia here, and we can contrast that with South Africa, which may look something like that, certainly further out than Slovenia's, okay, and it may even come further out. Even so. Okay, so this is interesting stuff in terms of understanding inequality, and it gives us some nice numerical information to understand through this Gini coefficient. Just remember this calculation, that's very, very important to understand. Okay, and the Lorenz curves can help us to understand what is happening within different income profiles. And something which is really quite sophisticated that you may want to look at when you're writing an essay on inequality is how a progressive rate of taxation perhaps might be able to target those highest income earners So just to move that Lorenz curve that much closer to the line of equality at that highest level perhaps, okay? So you can use them in quite a sophisticated manner if you become very, very fluent in the use of them. Something else that's important to note though is that the global Gini coefficient is 0.65. Now this has actually come down in recent times, okay, since around about the late 1990s where it was about 0.68. So that does seem to fit together with what we've seen with the Kuznets curve and what Simon Kuznets believed would happen to inequality as prosperity actually increased. Okay, another further interesting point just in relation to consideration of the Gini coefficient is that the Gini coefficient can increase, but absolute poverty declines substantially at the same time, and that has happened in China. And that is a very, very good example to consider and a good evaluative point to make in relation to the actual power of the Gini coefficient as a number. Okay guys, that's it.